For several years, Abia State felt like a forgotten corner of Nigeria. Abandoned roads, mountains of waste, unpaid workers. The people cried, but nothing changed. Then came a man called Alex Otti. He did not arrive as a miracle worker. He came as a man on a mission. But the question is, can he truly fix what years of bad leadership broke? Or will Abia State swallow him like it swallowed so many before him? In this edition of Back in History, we take you through history by reminding you of how it was in Abia State before today and how it is today. Before Alex Otti became the face of a new Abia State, he was a man who had built his name far away from politics. His journey did not start in government houses or political rallies. It began in the quiet town of Isialangwa, Abia State, where he was born on February 18, 1965. Young Alex Otti worked hard, eventually gaining admission to the prestigious University of Port Harcourt, where he studied economics. Later in 1994, he obtained a master's degree in business administration from the University of Lagos. After graduation, he joined the banking industry, and this was where his real story began. Otti's rise in the banking world was fast. He worked with some of Nigeria's biggest financial institutions, including Nigerian International Bank, now Citibank Nigeria, United Bank for Africa, UBA, and First Bank of Nigeria. But his big break came when he became the managing director and chief executive officer of Diamond Bank in 2011. At Diamond Bank, Otti did not just manage money. He transformed the bank's image, expanded its reach, and introduced policies that made banking more accessible to everyday Nigerian. He introduced electronic banking to the bank. Under his leadership, Diamond Bank grew stronger, becoming one of the most respected banks in the country and in Africa. Yet, something about the system did not sit well with him. Alex Otti saw how government policies were hurting businesses. He saw how poor leadership was robbing people of opportunities. And he believed that change could not only come from the boardrooms, it should also come from political leadership. So, in a bold move, he resigned from Diamond Bank in 2014 and entered into politics. People doubted him. They said he was just another rich man chasing power. But Otti kept his focus. He wanted to fix his home state, Abia, a place he believed had been mismanaged for too long. His first attempt at the governorship in 2015 under the All Progressives Grand Alliance ABGA was fraught with drama. He was, however, declared the winner by the Court of Appeal, but at the Supreme Court, he was removed. Still, he did not give up. He kept his eyes on the ball. Otti returned in 2023, this time under the Labour Party, and won decisively, with the people fully behind him and with Professor Nenna Otti of the Federal University of Technology, who was the returning officer for the state, standing firm to the truth and insisting on declaring the rightful result of the election. His story is not just about winning elections, it is about persistence. It is about a man who walked away from corporate success because he believed his people deserved better. And now, the weight of turning Abia State around is resting squarely on his shoulders. When Alex Otti became the governor of Abia State in 2023, he did not step into a palace. He stepped into a mess. For years, Abia State had struggled under the weight of poor leadership, unpaid workers, dilapidated roads, and broken promises. Many people had lost hope that anything good would ever come out of Abia, or that anything would ever change in the leadership of the state. Abia is known as God's own state, but for decades, it had become a shadow of its potential. In particular, Abia, the state's commercial nerve center, once famous for local manufacturing and entrepreneurship, had turned into a city of potholes, garbage heaps, and widespread frustration. One of the biggest problems Alex Otti inherited was the issue of unpaid salaries and pensions. Civil servants went to work but did not get paid for months, sometimes for years. Pensioners who had served the state faithfully were left to suffer in silence. Many had to borrow money to eat. Some even passed away without receiving what was rightfully their own. Teachers protested. Health workers went on strike. Basic services collapsed. And through it all, past governments offered more speeches than solutions. It wasn't just the unpaid workers. Abia's roads were a disaster. Streets in Abia were almost impossible to drive on. Flooded roads swallowed cars. Traders and residents often had to wade through muddy, flooded streets just to go to work or send their children to school. Meanwhile, waste management was in total shambles. Piles of garbage sat openly and executively on the roads, especially in busy parts of Abia and Umuahia. The smell was unbearable and nobody seemed to care. Then there was the issue of trust. People had heard promises from politicians before. They had been told again and again that things would get better, but what they got was the same old cycle of neglect, corruption, and selfish leadership. Abia's image in the eyes of investors was also deeply tarnished. The state's business climate was unattractive. The environment wasn't safe. The infrastructure was failing, and most investors preferred to stay away. So when Alex Otti took office, he knew what he was getting himself into. The people of Abia did not just need a governor, they needed a builder. They needed someone who would clean the roads, not just cover it with another layer of paint. The weight of expectation was huge, but so was the hunger for change in Alex Otti. Otti now had to prove whether he could actually rebuild a state that many had given up on. From day one, Otti sent a strong message, namely, the era of business as usual is over. One of his first bold moves was to tackle ghost workers. For years, the Abia state payroll was bloated with thousands of fake names, people who did not actually work but still collected salaries. These were the ghost workers. This was a major way public funds were stolen. Otti ordered a thorough audit. By cleaning up the payroll, he started saving billions of naira that could now go back into real projects for the benefits of the people of Abia. But he did not stop there. The streets of Abia had become symbols of decay. Roads like Port Harcourt Road and Cemetery Road were in terrible shapes. Otti immediately launched massive road rehabilitation projects. He brought in contractors like Julius Berger with strict deadlines and made sure the work did not stop halfway as had happened in the past. One of his biggest early wins was his focus on waste management. He declared a state of emergency on refuse disposal, especially in Abia. Within weeks, the streets that were once covered in garbage started looking cleaner. Trucks now worked regularly to clean waste. For many residents, it was the first visible sign that things were indeed changing. Otti also turned his attention to the electricity sector, and today, many businesses and households in Abia State now enjoy electricity for several hours per day. In the health sector, Otti began rehabilitating hospitals that had been abandoned for years. He prioritized the payment of salaries and pensions, especially for health workers, to get hospitals working again. Slowly, public confidence in the state's healthcare system began to rise. Education also received immediate attention. Otti moved to ensure teachers were paid on time, and some dilapidated schools were given a first lift, while the process continues for the total overhaul of the educational system in the state. For years, unpaid salaries had driven teachers away, but now things are starting to shift. Just recently, he announced free and compulsory education for all children in the state, to the joy of many families. Another key part of Otti's reform is his commitment to transparency. He made sure that contracts, appointments, and government spendings are open to public scrutiny. He uses town hall meetings to directly engage with citizens, explaining where money was going and what challenges his government is facing. Even more interesting, Otti tried to rebuild trust with investors. By fixing roads, cleaning up the cities, and stabilizing government finances, he slowly made Abia more attractive to businesses. For a state that was once written off by many investors, this was a significant turnaround. But Otti's reforms did not come without resistance. Some political enemies who had benefited from the old system fought back quietly. There were attempts to frustrate his efforts, but Otti kept moving forward. For the first time in a long time, many people in Abia began to believe that real change is possible. The revolution had started, but the road ahead is still long. Alex Otti's story in Abia State is still unfolding, and while he has made bold moves, the mountain in front of him is still high. One of his biggest ongoing battles is with debts. When Otti took over, he discovered that Abia was buried with billions of naira of indebtedness, some of it poorly accounted for. Servicing these loans while trying to build new roads, schools, and hospitals is like carrying water in a basket. It requires careful management, and the room for mistakes is very small. Even though he has made progress with waste management and road repairs, the demands are endless. There are still many roads that need attention. There are schools with no roofs, hospitals with no beds, and civil servants who have lost faith in government after years of broken promises. Another challenge is security. Like many other states in Nigeria, Abia has faced issues with kidnappings, armed robbery, and clashes between security agencies and unknown gunmen. Investors want to bring their money into Abia, but they need to feel safe. Otti knows this, and strengthening the state security architecture remains a key part of his plans. There is also the challenge of political sabotage. In Nigeria, it is not uncommon for people who lost power to try and fight back behind the scenes. Some of the corrupt systems Otti is dismantling today had benefited powerful individuals for years. Those people aren't going quiet. They are waiting for him to fail. Some are even trying to stir public anger by frustrating his reforms from the shadows. But Otti seems ready for the fight. One thing working in his favor is the people's support, the people's trust, and the people's confidence in him. Many residents are seeing real changes for the first time in decades. The markets are cleaner. Some roads are now motorable, and pensioners who were once forgotten are now getting paid. There is hope, but also a silent question. Will Otti keep this momentum? Or will he get swallowed by the same system he came to fight? The road ahead for Abia is long, with more storms to weather. But if Alex Otti can stay on track, keep his team focused, and continue listening to the people, he just might succeed where so many others have failed. His mission isn't just to fix potholes. His mission is to rebuild trust. And that could be his biggest legacy yet. The people of Abia finally have a reason to pay attention. Because right now, Alex Otti is not just leading a state, he is leading a fight against failure. And this fight is far from over.